abusive partner wasn't the hardest part. It was everything that came after. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I gained the courage to leave an abusive relationship, and it wasn't at all what I expected. Then the separation process and going through that, and thirdly, what happened after the relationship ended. But make sure you watch until the end, because then I'm going to reveal how much my life has improved and why you should never give up hope. So I'm Helen, and I'm a meditation teacher, EFT practitioner and a solo traveller. I help women heal from trauma and to rebuild their lives. Exactly what I'm doing. I've been through an abusive marriage, burnout, debt, and starting over from nothing in my late 50s. And if I can do it, you can too. So do follow along. Well, before I left the relationship, I was married for 15 years, in the relationship for nearly 20. I actually didn't know that this would work, but it did. It was 25 years ago, 2001, I felt hopeless. I knew I couldn't carry on like this. My confidence, my self-esteem was at an all-time low because it had been chipped away over the years by his comments, by his continual putting me down, criticism that I didn't really believe in myself anymore. Now, at the time, he was working abroad, and I realised I was a lot happier when he wasn't there. But I was scared because he was unpredictable and I didn't know what he would do. And the only thing that I could think of to do at that time was to pray. I went to church regularly, but I sang in a choir, but I didn't know if I really believed in God or a higher power. But I thought, well, I'm at this point now where I've got nothing left to lose. I was done hoping that he was going to change, so I prayed for strength. I wasn't even thinking about leaving him at that time. I just wanted to get my own strength back. But the more I prayed, the stronger I felt. Then a few things happened which I saw as signs that convinced me this was the right thing, the right time to leave him. The day I actually made the decision, I got a mosquito bite on the third finger of my left hand, and it swelled up so much I couldn't get my wedding ring on. And then shortly after that, my car was stolen. And the police came round to my house to take a statement, and they left me with a leaflet from victim support. Not that I was bothered about the car, it was an old car, but I read it anyway. And there was a section in that leaflet on domestic abuse. And it talked about emotional and verbal abuse, and I realised that is what had been going on for me. But more critically, at the end of this section, these 8 words flipped a switch in my head where it said, "You don't have to put up with this." And I thought, no, I don't. And then I made that decision that I was going to leave him and call a solicitor, because nobody had ever said that to me before. I didn't think I deserved any better. But this was probably just the first step where my self-worth started to come back. So, but that was just the first part. The next came the separation process. I thought, oh, this will be it. You know, once I'm done, we separate, I move on with my life and everything will be rosy. But no, this was a lot longer and a lot more arduous than I expected. And I can say that once you've made that decision and tell them that you're going to leave, I think so in some cases it's probably, you know, safer to leave and not tell them. But I didn't know about that at the time, that actually the most dangerous time to with an abusive partner is when you leave or tell them you want to leave. You're at a much higher risk than you are when you're still in the relationship, because they realise they're losing their control over you, and whatever you do, nothing can prepare you for their reaction. He was trying to convince me to stay, but no, my mind was made up. And it took him nearly a year to move out, even though he had somewhere he could go. I didn't have enough money. I couldn't afford to move out. Also, I had three young children, and I couldn't abandon them because he was never around. He was always working away, long hours, and their schools and everything were nearby, and I didn't have any support. So that was a long, drawn out process. During that time, he played a lot of emotional games trying to manipulate me. He would send me abusive texts. He even hacked into my emails, and because he was convinced that I was seeing somebody else. But I think the hardest part was actually, no, I would rather be on my own than be with him. After the relationship ended and he moved out, I thought, oh yeah, this will be it now, end of that, move on, new life. But the abuse doesn't necessarily stop, because this was 25 years ago and nobody was talking about financial abuse or post-separation abuse like they are now. So I had no idea that this was going to continue for years, up for another, so when he moved out it was 2002, and that continued until 2014 when he died. It was only his death that stopped his abusing me. Not everybody was bad, but there was no signposting back then where I could go and get support. The police were good. A few times I had to call the police for various reasons, and they took my concern seriously, but I was too scared to take it any further. My solicitor was no use, because my ex-husband was ignoring the letters, and in the end I had to give up trying to secure a financial settlement, because we'd agreed it between us verbally that I wanted it formalised, and my solicitor said, no, don't take it to court. He was a middle-aged man, and now I look back, he was not very good, but at the time I didn't know. There was no signposting, this is where you can go and get support, and I did find out years later I could have got free legal advice from Women's Aid. I owned my own house at the time, so I wasn't entitled to any support, even though the money was all tied up in my house. I didn't have any cash to pay. So in the end, I lost everything, because when he died, he didn't leave a will, and everything went to his second wife. But you know, that was then, and I share this because it's really important. Even if you have to go, I believe, even if you have to go to court, and I know people say that's a horrible process, but that is something I would have done you know, with hindsight. I went to my doctor. Well, he was actually a locum, again, another middle-aged man. Because I was scared, didn't know what to do. This was before he'd moved out. Do I go to the police? And all the doctor said was, it's up to you. So not much help there. We also went to Relate, which is, it used to be called Marriage Guidance, a charity in the UK, which helps people who are having difficulty in their relationship. Now, their agenda is for people to stay together, and I agreed to go along because I thought this might help us have a more amicable separation. But the counsellor, who I told about the abuse when I had a session on my own, again, she didn't tell me where I could go and get help. And that did actually make me very angry when I realised that years later, and I even sent them an email and they didn't even reply. The abuse continued through texts, phone calls. He would call me at work, he would check up on me, turn up unexpectedly at my house, send abusive texts, and the financial abuse, withholding payments, paying late, until eventually he was self-employed, and then once he did get a job, I was able to go to the child support agency and get the maintenance payments taken directly from his salary. But when he died, he still owed me a lot of money, and I never got that back because his second wife wasn't interested. You know, he would try and manipulate me and accuse me of blocking him from seeing the children because he went away a lot. He didn't work regular hours, but he would call like the day before, and when we'd already made other plans, and then accuse me of blocking access. And I would say to him, well, if you tell me in advance when you want to see them, that's fine, I'll keep those days free. But that was his way of trying to control me, that he could just call me at a moment's notice. But no, I wasn't having any of that, and eventually my children saw through all that as well. So yes, this continued right up until the day that he died, although at that point I was having very little to do with him because my children were older then and they made their own arrangements with him. Then after he died, that brought up a lot of pain because I just powered through. I hadn't had any support to heal from the marriage, and this is when it started, like 12 years later. Of course, the fact that he hadn't made a will didn't help, and I hadn't realised how deeply the abuse had affected me until this point. And ever since we separated, I had regular dreams about him coming back, or that I was still in the relationship. And I thought, oh, maybe this will stop when he died. But no, I would even have dreams that he'd come back from the dead, or that he hadn't really died. And I'm thinking maybe I should have checked his coffin before it was cremated to make sure he was really in there. But anyway, but what is interesting, I am now staying in King Island, which is an island between Melbourne and Tasmania, in the middle of nowhere. The nearest person is a kilometre away from here. I'm staying in a little dome. And the first night here, I had a dream that I was still married to him, and our children were young. They're all grown up now, and we were in the process of buying another house, and I said, I don't want to move into this new house with you, and it's time for you to go. And I've had, a lot of dreams like that. But what happened the other night that was different, which is why I know that I've really moved on, is that subconsciously I must have known this was a dream. And so it was my first night here, so I started thinking, oh, where am I? And then remind myself, well, where am I? Oh, I'm in Australia. I'm on my own. My children are all grown up. That's not real. This is my reality now. So wherever you are right now in your journey, never give up hope. Keep going. Thank you for watching, and I will leave you with some scenes of the view from where I'm staying. And until next time, take care, go well, lots of love.